to the Jews and history. Rashi, a light after the dark ages. Set in the 11th century, Rashi is about a man, an extraordinary medieval French scholar who lived in the years just before the Crusades' reign of terror. Rashi's legacy is in the clarity and timelessness of his commentaries on the Bible and the Talmud. Rashi became, and still is, not just the most reproduced and widely studied commentary on the Bible, but one of the strongest forces and role models in Jewish and world history. In this age of the millennium, with renewed interest in the Bible, Rashi's almost 1,000-year-old commentary continues to stand out. To understand Rashi is to understand the story of the Jews. So come back into history, to France, and through one man, enter a world that began with the belief in one God. One can always see things more clearly in retrospect. So it is here, near Notre Dame, in Place de Grave, 150 years after Rashi died, that we begin our story. Here in 1240, Louis IX of France ordered the public burning of the Talmud. Perhaps if he really understood what he was burning, he might never have dared to do so. Just before this outrage, from the 9th century, when Charlemagne invited the Jews to leave Babylon and settle in France, till the middle of the 10th century, for a very brief period of time, there was relative peace between the Jews and their Christian neighbors. It was during this peace, in the year 1040, that Rashi was born. Rashi was only about 8 years old when he left his hometown Troyes on his way to Worms and Mainz, the centers of Jewish learning. After years of study, now married with 2 daughters, Rashi chose to go back home to Troyes to lead the Jewish community in which he was born.
Rabbeinu.
Do you stay with me?
Loss is Troyes' gain, Rabbi Shlomo.
Rabbeinu, I have a full set of Rabbeinu Gershom's Talmud. I also have a full set of the yeshiva's commentary, a kuntras on almost every volume of the Talmud.
You're going to need a lot more than books and commentaries to be a leader, Rabbi Shlomo.
Rabbeinu, I don't want to be a leader. I just want to be a rabbi. I want to study and write my kuntrasim.
Yes, you must write. You have a gift, and your commentary is the next generation of Torah. But you must lead, too.
Lead, too? My studies and my vineyard will keep me busy enough. Rabbeinu, the books have never taught me how to lead.
You never have to be afraid to lead, Yitzchaki. You just lead by example. That's all you need to know. Now, go. And remember, Yitzchaki, your copy of the Talmud has been preserved since the Jews came to France from Babylon. Don't change even a letter.
Of course, Rabbeinu.
Rabbi Shlomo, Mainz will never be the same without you.
Nor I without Mainz, Monsignor Lutin.
Have I managed to convince you of anything?
Of your friendship.
You had that long ago.
And that to understand the Bible, one must study Talmud.
I convinced you of that?
The more you argued against it, my friend, the more I was convinced of it.
I see I was wasting my breath, wasn't I?
No, not so. We learn from everyone. Perhaps even more from those with whom we disagree.
Well, I will have to find someone else with whom to disagree. Be careful. The roads are not safe, especially for a Jew.
Do not worry, Monsignor Lutin. The roads are filled with merchants going to the Troyes fair. With God's help, we'll be fine.
Allez! Allez!
might not be Jewish, but I do know what 12 lengths of flax looks like. And that's not and never will be 12 lengths.
Well, this is 12 lengths. 12 Trois lengths. I don't know what this is where you come from, but here in Trois, this is 12 lengths. Here. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I am from Tora, and you know that. Give me that. Bring the official measure. You see, your measure is short. See?
Put him out of business.
Rabbeinu, this is not the first time a Jew cheated a non-Jew in Troyes.
It is the first time since I got here, and the last.
Rabbi, in all due respect, there are more important considerations in Troyes at this moment than a business confrontation at the fair. Believe me, it's just as often a non-Jew cheating a Jew.
We must always remember what the nation of Amalek did to the Jewish people in the desert. The Torah commands us to do so.
Amalek?
Deuteronomy, chapter 25, verse 17. Here it is. This is where God tells us of Amalek's savage attack. It happens right after the Jewish people complained to Moses about their lack of faith in God to provide food and sustenance in the desert. But look at the context. The reminder about Amalek comes right after God tells us about the laws of weights and measures in the marketplace. Do you think that's a coincidence? No. There's no coincidence in the Bible. When you cheat on weights and measures, you demonstrate a lack of faith in God's ability to provide for you. In the Torah, as in Jewish history, what follows unethical behavior is, God forbid, Amalek.
Come, let us go to the evening service. It is our first prayer service with our new rabbi.
Not you, Herman. You go straight to the merchant and beg forgiveness. Your prayers can wait.
Rabbi Shlomo quickly became the spiritual leader of the Jewish community of France. He continued his writings and modestly introduced them to Troyes in the third person, calling them the works of She, an acronym for his name, Shlomo Yitzhaki, Solomon the son of Isaac. The Jews of Troyes, in a name change that would sweep the world and take a permanent place in Jewish history, added an R for Rabbeinu, our rabbi, to the front of the name to make it Rashi, our rabbi, Shlomo Yitzhaki. Some say that Rashi stands for more, for Rabban Shel Yisrael, teacher of Israel. Rashi became as much an acronym of endearment as of reverence.
Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhaki, Shalom Aleichem.
Aleichem Shalom. You know me?
The first copy of Rabbeinu's commentary on the marriage tractate reached Algiers just before I left. It was an event.
And what brings a fine Jew to Troyes all the way from Algiers? France has more than its share of quill and ink.
Ah, Rabbeinu, I've developed a new mixture for ink. It dries faster, lets you work quicker.
It's not made on the Sabbath, is it?
My ink! Heaven forbid. The students of the great Rabbi Alfalsi use my ink. The entire Babylonian Talmud has been copied with my ink, many times over. Here. Run your hand over that.
Good. Very good.
Located about 90 miles southeast of Paris and at the junction of two main trade routes leading to Italy and the Near East, Troyes brought out the cosmopolitan side of Rashi. But it was his Torah scholarship that really flourished. At first it was just the Talmud commentary, tractate by tractate, law by law, debate by debate. Written in Babylon as a commentary to the oral law nearly 700 years before the Jews came to France, the Talmud became forever more accessible and alive through the work Rashi started in Mainz and Worms. But as he grew older, Rashi took on a new commentary, so concise, insightful, and sweet, that it would forever be known as his gift to the Jewish people and to the world.
feet.
Yes, my livelihood, and the source of my faith in God. I have a regular market, mostly local Christian.
Winemaking. A special gift to the Jews of Champagne. A noble profession.
Noble only because it allows time to study Torah.
Well, yes, it is difficult to learn Torah when your mind is constantly worrying about making a living. What exactly are you working on now, Rabbi Shlomo?
I have started a commentary on the 5 books of Moses.
There is a need. Textual or the hidden meaning?
I always stick to the strict interpretation of the text to understand the plain meaning, the simplicity of God's word. As you would expect from a rabbi as French as I am. But at the same time, I try to not forget the stories and the folklore that have passed through the generations.
Midrashim, yes, that too is Torah. The transmission of Torah. My family's livelihood for centuries. But Rabinu, what about the mysteries of the Torah? The concealed messages?
Oh, I leave that to the commentaries from your side of the world.
You're afraid of the hidden meaning.
Afraid? No. What I'm afraid of is a drought that will ruin my crop, or the local governor raising my taxes, or taking away a Jew's right to own land.
Well, then you are afraid.
Call it what you will.
Well, it takes a deep man to write a simple commentary.
But Morenu, wasn't the transmission of Torah supposed to be an oral transmission only?
Yes, it was. And many believed that it should continue to be so. But it was the Jewish year 3949, and Reb Yehuda Hanassi saw a new Amalek, the Romans. He feared that their oppression would cause the loss of the oral tradition, and he took action. Exactly. There are times we must take action for God so that his Torah should not be destroyed. What action do you think the psalmist meant? War? Revenge? Writing it down, committing it to parchment. That's the action Reb Yehuda Hanassi meant. To prevent the oral law from, God forbid, just drifting off into history. Writing it down. What was the next action to be taken?
Writing down the Gemara, the commentary on the Mishnah.
When?
300 years later.
Good. And ever since, the act of preserving Torah has become a part of history. The Talmud we have was perfectly preserved by Rabbeinu Gershom, the light of the exile. All the kuntrasim that circulate, even your note-taking, all this is Torah.
In an age of illiteracy, and in one of the truly remarkable parentheses in the history of education, Rashi taught his daughters to read and write both Hebrew and French. With no sons, and in order to meet the demands of his kuntres, he shared with them the complex language of the Talmud, the intricacy of her thought, the beauty of her logic.
Of course the employer can keep the workers' clothes. The law is clear. If a worker hauling vessels breaks one of those vessels, the worker is responsible. It's clear.
What's clear is that the clothes the man left behind that morning were all he had. He shouldn't be held responsible.
But the law says he is responsible.
The law, but what about his dignity?
Read, Yocheved.
Rabba Barbachanan Tovru Lehanhu. Some porters negligently broke vessels of wine belonging to Rabba, the son of Rav Huna. He seized their garments. The workers complained to the rabbi. Return them their garments, the rabbi ordered?
He also says, pay them their wages.
But, Papa, who should be paying whom?
Well, daughters, for a change, you're both right. The law is the law, Yocheved, but there's another side to the law.
Papa?
Yes?
What if you had sons?
If I had sons, Miriam, you would have had brothers.
But, Papa, if you had sons, would you have taught Torah to me and Yocheved?
I don't know, Miriam. I really don't know. Why is that so important?
It's not, I suppose.
Here, read. Proverbs chapter 2, verse 20.
Lema'an telech biderech tovim, so that you may walk in the ways of good men.
In the ways of good men means to sometimes look beyond the letter of the law.
But by definition, the law is ethical and moral, right, Papa?
Yes, but not always. Didn't Papa just say we should sometimes look beyond the law?
Yocheved, Miriam, your Torah is as sweet to me as any son's Torah could ever be.
Rashi's family grew in size and Torah. His daughters, Yochebed and Miriam, married two Talmud scholars, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda ben Nassan, who would both write Torah commentaries of their own. Their children and grandchildren would also become scholars and leaders of the French Jewish community. Together, they would be known as the House of Rashi, a tribute not just to Rashi himself, but to the transmission of Torah, which he so nobly stood for.
It looks so powerful, Grandpapa.
Powerful, but gentle. Watch how she enters her nest. She'll never go in suddenly and scare off her young.
When you study Rashi, you are always amazed at how much he knew about so many different things. About goldsmithing and raising cattle, building castles and botany, trade routes, the tides of the sea, the customs of nobility.
She first beats her wings and makes noises to wake them up.
Deuteronomy 32:11.
Good. As an eagle stirs up her nest, that's how God led our people out of Egypt. Gently. God led us out gently.
To understand Torah and its application to everyday life, Rashi's attention to detail was precise. So precise that in over 3,000 instances, he resorts to his command of French to give the exact meaning of the word. A command so pure and perfect that today it is used by scholars in their study of Old French.
She's hardly even touching them. Look.
Hovers over her young.
Spreads her wings, takes them, and bears them on her wings.
Does God have wings, Grandpapa?
It's a mashal, Shmuel, an allegory. It's easier to understand an eagle than to understand God himself.
History tells us very little about Rashi's wife, which intimates that she could have died at an early age. If true, it gives one a deeper understanding of the closeness he developed with his daughters. Besides vintner, scholar, and rabbi, Rashi was also Dayan, head judge of the Beis Din, the Troyes Jewish court. Here, Rashi's interpretation of Jewish law was put to a variety of practical issues concerning divorce, relationship with the Christian community, and business matters. Much of what we know about Rashi's life and attitudes comes from the record of his rulings in Jewish law.
Rabbis, I am a man of charity. There isn't a Jew in Troyes who doesn't know that. But I have explained to the rabbis I took an oath. These men are my witnesses. I swore in front of them that under no circumstances would I support or give money to the community's Jewish pauper fund. I give my charity on my own, not through the community.
Your oath is an invalid oath, Monsieur Jacques.
Invalid? Everyone knows the power of an oath witnessed by two valid witnesses, and these men are valid, Rabbi.
I do not question the validity of your witnesses. I question the validity of your oath. You cannot swear an oath against the community because the community is more powerful than any individual. Your oath is invalid.
I swore in the name of God. Ask these men.
These men witnessed nothing more than perhaps an idle utterance of God's name. Monsieur Jacques, you must continue to be a man of charity. Give on your own, directly to people in need, but not at the expense of the community.
Rabbeinu, I use the name of God in vain.
Perhaps, Monsieur Jacques, but think about it. The community will grow because of all this. Now go. You don't belong in a Beis Din.
Although his peaceful relationship with the Troyes Christian community was well known, Rashi was apprehensive. His concern, assimilation, would continue through the 20th century. Only later would Rashi add fear of physical harm and persecution.
We do business with the Christian community. I trust them every day with loans. You give them credit with your wines. Our relationship is fine.
But sharing Torah with the church? Now that's a whole other matter. What exactly did Bishop Lutin say?
He said he wants a closer relationship with the original Hebrew text through public dialogue with you on the book of Isaiah.
Isaiah?
Yes.
I knew this bishop when he was a young priest in Mainz. I learned back then there are differences that we can never reconcile. This kind of interaction can only lead to trouble.
We must do something. We can't just ignore this. He expects to meet with you personally before the end of the coming week.
But a public dialogue?
The Kuntris. What if we send the bishop a copy of your commentary on Isaiah?
That could work. Yes, I think that would work.
Against my better judgment. Do it.
I was expecting the father-in-law, not the son-in-law.
My father-in-law couldn't come because he couldn't agree to the public dialogue.
This wouldn't be our first dialogue.
He sends his best personal regards and congratulates you on being appointed bishop.
I don't want his congratulations. I want him.
This will represent him.
This? I don't want this. I want Rabbi Shlomo himself.
Shalom Aleichem. And how are the Jews of Algiers?
Oh, to tell you the truth, Rabbeinu Shlomo, I haven't been back to Algiers since the last time we met. I have been to Yerushalayim.
Oh, I haven't even left the city of Troyes. You've been to Jerusalem and back.
Oh, but I haven't written the world's finest commentary on Torah. Some copies of Arinu's Kuntras have reached the Holy Land.
I always think of Torah as flowing from there to here, not the other way around.
There's so much happening in the world today. The Jews of Yerushalayim are frightened.
Of what?
Of the Christians. More and more come every year from Germany and even from right around here. They say the Holy Land is theirs.
Don't the Muslims control Jerusalem? What are the Jews afraid of?
Ah, Rabbi Shlomo, when extremists seek out their enemies, they always find the Jews. I understand parts of your commentary have found their way to the church.
If we actively explain our ways, we're accused of proselytizing. If we refuse to cooperate, we're accused of rejecting their Messiah. Sending the commentary was a compromise.
Well, then you are afraid of repercussions.
No, not afraid. I'm concerned. I'm apprehensive.
Well, call it what you will. Well, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of fear, Rabbeinu. Fear eternally keeps our people prepared. And fear of God is a prerequisite for living in the way of the Torah.
Fear of God is fine. Fear of anything else is weakness. Showing it means you doubt the validity of your actions.
So you cannot accept your own imperfections.
God forbid. I'm forever aware of my flaws.
Stop being so hard on yourself, Rabbeinu. Only God himself is perfect. And sometimes even he doesn't seem to make any sense. Your hands guided Rabbi Shlomo. You're but the messenger. We're all but messengers.
But my commentary is now representing the Jewish people. It must be perfect.
Well, no matter how perfect, Rabbeinu, you can never win the word games these extremists play. Ultimately, they'll resort to the sword. A little fear will keep you and the Jews of Troyes on their toes.
Spoken by a man who knows how to get in and out of a country faster than any Jew I know. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech ha'olam. Blessed are you, Hashem our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his mitzvos and commanded us to sit in the sukkah.
Oh, man. Maury, there's so much to know. Why did you make the blessing over the food first and then the blessing over the sukkah? Why not the other way around? And do we make a prayer over the sukkah each time we eat or just once a day? What about mourners? Can a mourner lead a service on a holiday?
Rabbi Simcha, enough with the details.
Rabbi Simcha of Vitry, Rashi's most diligent student, carefully documented his teacher's practice of Jewish law for the Jewish holidays in a volume called Machzor Vitry. Machzor Vitry survived the generations and is to this day one of our greatest halachic and historical resources.
Rabbi Simcha, do you know why we sit in the sukkah for 7 days?
It makes us pious Jews.
No, it makes us humble Jews. It makes us realize where we come from. Not from France, Babylon, or Rome, but from a generation of slaves who were freed and left to grow and learn about God in the desert, in little huts like these.
Do we really need a sukkah to make us remember?
Judaism gives us concrete ways to understand abstract ideas. That's what all the details are about. To remind us of who we are responsible to. Don't be fooled, Rabbi Simcha. Jewish history is filled with ups and downs. Our French neighbors today could easily turn on us tomorrow. And it won't be because of our quaint little details.
But Maury, our people are protected by the local officials. We even own land. France has been good to the Jews. Why such apprehension?
I'm simply remarking on the course of Jewish history as I see it. With God's help, we will agree to disagree with our neighbors in peace.
Rabbeinu, Moedim la Simcha, happy Sukkot. I am sorry to interrupt with bad news. The blacksmith, Jolene, died suddenly. The people are already gathering for the funeral.
Baruch Dayan Emes. Blessed is the righteous judge. There are many wonderful things to say about Jolene, the blacksmith at Troyes. But we are in the middle of the festival of Sukkot, and holidays take precedence over our personal loss. All eulogies and mourning will be postponed until after the festival. I know this will be difficult. It is natural to mourn for the people we love. We all feel deeply for you, and we share your loss. But Sukkot, the holiday of joy, comes before your personal tragedy. Say the Kaddish.
Yisgadal v'yisgadal shemei Rabba, Yomadu shalom b'brama, Hu yaseh shalom, Aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru amen.
What is unique about Rashi's commentary is its perfect blend of explanation, storytelling, and morals, along with an absolute commitment to clarifying simply many of the complexities raised in each and every letter, word, and phrase in the Torah.
Grandpapa, it's a holiday. Don't you ever take a rest from your studying?
Actually, I find examining the words of the Torah quite enjoyable. Here, try this. The Torah talks about Jewish leaders. It says, Asher, when a king or Jewish leader sins. Anything strange about that?
Sure. It should say im, if a king sins. The Torah made a mistake.
God forbid, my little Yitzchak. There are no mistakes in the Torah. Every nuance, every word, every syllable is correct.
Then why does it say when?
Because the Torah is telling us something about the nature of human leadership. Even though they be kings, even though they have power, even though they might think themselves superior, they are still human. And no human is perfect. No human can escape sin. Mistakes.
We learn all that from the word when?
When a king sins, little Yitzchak, not if a king sins.
Tell me more, Grandpapa. Tell me more.
All right. The blind man and the stumbling block. You know that one?
Sure. Don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind man. He'll trip.
But what does it really say? The words, Yitzchak. The words.
Lifnei iver lo siten michshol. Don't give a stumbling block in front of a blind man.
Give a stumbling block. Why give?
Okay, I give up. What does give a stumbling block mean?
It's not just what it means, Yitzchak. It's how we interpret it, what we learn from it. It's easy to understand why it's wrong to trip a blind person, but the Torah wants us to learn more. Sometimes even people who can see are blind. They're blind because they lack knowledge or information. The Torah, through its choice of words, tells us that we must equally understand how wrong it is to give misleading information, bad advice, to people who lack knowledge. They too are blind. They too must not be given stumbling blocks.
There is a problem. Jolene's wife and sons are sitting Shiva. They have torn their garments and are on the floor in mourning. Your ruling has been trampled upon. The community wants to hear from you.
Where are they sitting?
In their home. Upstairs from Jolen's shop.
Come. Let's go.
Rabbeinu, they have refused your guidance.
I'm going upstairs. Come with me. All of you. Sit, sit. Mourners do not stand.
Rabbeinu, please forgive us. We couldn't feel the joy of Sukkot. We had to mourn.
And I wish I could mourn with you. Jolen was a giant. Nobody had a bad word to say about him. His life was a model for all of us. It was very difficult for me to not eulogize him. I loved him very much.
Is it so bad that I sit Shiva on the holiday? He was my husband.
If your grief will not let you celebrate, then sit, sit.
Mori, are you changing your ruling? Were you wrong?
No, my dear son-in-law. I was not wrong in my ruling, but I was wrong in my judgment of their grief. Let them come to accept God's will in this fashion.
Yom Tov hu milrachem v'nechamok ravo lavo.
Hamakom yenachem eschem besoch Shia evelei Tzion veYerushalayim. May God comfort you among the rest of the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem.
May God comfort you among the rest of the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem.
Rashi was not a political man, but he was aware and concerned about the events and activities of his day. In his very first commentary on the very first sentence in the Bible, Rashi gives the Torah's point of view on the most important political issue of his time.
Rabbi, how are the grapes in the Holy Land?
The grapes in the Holy Land? Holy, I suppose. Why do you ask?
I'm going with the group as soon as the trees begin to blossom. We're going to make sure the city of Jerusalem is restored to the Christians.
Jerusalem does not belong to the Christians, monsieur.
Oh. And who does it belong to? The Jews?
Monsieur Lionel, you studied the book of Genesis, didn't you?
Not as extensively as a great scholar like yourself, and not in the original, as I'm sure you have. But yes, all good Christians have studied Genesis.
Isn't it strange, Monsieur Lionel, that the Bible, which is really a book of laws and codes, not a storybook, begins with a story of creation. Why not begin with a law, a commandment?
Certainly you have an answer, Rabbi.
Yes, I do. It is because right from the beginning, God wanted to tell us who the city of Jerusalem belongs to, who the Holy Land belongs to, who the entire world belongs to.
And who does it belong to, Rabbi?
To him. Reshis Borah Elohim. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He created it. It belongs to him. He can do anything he wants with it.
And he wants the Christians to have it.
Monsieur Lionel, I think we should keep our conversations to wine-related matters. Theology, or should I say politics, doesn't seem to agree with us. Your wine, Monsieur Lionel.
Papa, it's the middle of the day. Why are you still wearing your prayer shawl and your tefillin?
Maybe I'm getting pious in my old age.
Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, pious? Never. Papa, really. What have you been working on?
Mostly correspondence. We've been so busy in the vineyards. The courier's leaving tomorrow morning.
Here, let me help.
You answer this one. You know this as well as I do. My dear Yosef, it is not a sin if a man interrupts his grace after meals in order to feed his animals. The Torah itself commands us to feed our animals before we feed ourselves, with Torah blessings. To the rabbis of Auxerre, regarding your reference to my commentary on the book of Ezekiel, I made a mistake in that reference. I was wrong. I have gone through it with my grandson and have corrected it. Thank you for bringing this matter to my attention. To my dear, learned, and respected son-in-law in Worms, I hereby inform you that I have not retracted my opinion and shall not retract it. I refuse to cause any financial loss to my people by prohibiting the sale of perfectly kosher meat. It is clear to me that one should be lenient in this matter. Tell the Worms rabbis that if they keep on handing down prohibitions, they will soon lose their authority.
That strong, Papa?
It takes courage to exercise leniency. Keep this matter quiet and among the rabbis only. The Worms community must not be divided over this issue. What portion of the Talmud are you studying with Shmuel? Has the little one started to read French yet? With blessings of good health and prosperity, we miss you. And make sure you add a couple of words to your sister.
Papa!
Rashi stressed the law above all else. Nevertheless, he also defended simple Jewish customs or minhagim, even if they had no real legal basis. Rashi felt that a custom passed down from our fathers must come from a holy source, and therefore must be maintained. Even if we are not prophets, he would say, we are still the sons of prophets.
Shalom Aleichem.
Come, read us the Aleph Beis.
Not yet.
Aleph, Beis, Gimel.
Among the earliest references to the education of children is a holiday custom found in Rabbi Simcha of Vitri's Machzor. To truly appreciate this beloved ritual, you have to appreciate the secular ideal of education of that day.
Tes, Yud.
The secular ideal of education was the ideal of obedience, rooted in the Augustinian teaching that the birch, the strap, and the cane are indispensable to overcome ignorance.
None.
Break your child's will in order that he may not perish. It should be forced to do as it is told, even if you have to whip it 10 times.
Kuf.
A Rashi for the next generation.
But not yet as humble.
Resh.
In the Jewish world of 11th century France, making learning a positive experience was the ideal. This ideal created a Jewish population who, regardless of social standing, wealth, or even scholarship, made the study of Torah a daily routine, not only out of obligation, not only out of commitment, but out of love.
Shin. Taf.
Your words are as pleasant as honeycomb, sweet to the soul, and healing to the bones.
Now.
Rabbi Solomon, son of Isaac?
Yes?
From Duke Godfrey of Bouillon.
Did he say why he wants to see you?
Copies of my commentary on Isaiah have been circulated by the church.
But did he say why he wants to see you?
Here, you read between the lines.
He says he's leaving for Jerusalem and wants the opinion of a holy man like yourself as to the possibilities of his recapturing the holy city for the Christians.
Now I ask you, why could he possibly need my opinion?
But he's asking to see you.
My dear son-in-law, I haven't left the city of Troyes in 25 years. Not even to see my own masters in mines or worms. Tell me, must I give in now to the whims of this crusader?
So, Bishop.
He refuses to see you, Duke Godfrey. He refuses to debate.
He knows that nothing he would say would make a difference. He's smarter than you made him out to be.
The Jews of Mainz have been attacked! The Jews of Mainz have been attacked! Forced into the synagogue, burned to the ground. Mobs with swords killed them, raped them,
There's nothing left.
Are they coming here?
We're protected. King Henry signed an edict.
The Jews of Mainz were protected too.
They won't settle for anything less than baptizing the entire Jewish community.
They might not even settle for that.
We should have gone to see the Duke. Should have. What difference does it make? We didn't.
Maybe it doesn't have to happen in Tora. Maybe we can buy our safety.
You can't buy zealots like you buy kings and noblemen. You don't even know who they are. What do they want from us, Frocco?
A crusade is on its way to Jerusalem, and the Jews just happen to be in the way. They want you to believe what they believe. They want everyone to believe what they believe.
And what do you believe, Frocco?
Monsieur Jacques, rabbis, you are my friends and neighbors. I am not one of them. Most of us are not one of them. You must know that.
Of course, we do know that.
I thought it couldn't happen here. Not in France. Not in France.
The First Crusade began its reign of terror in 1096 towards the end of Rashi's life. Jews in the Rhine communities, including mentors, colleagues, and friends of Rashi, were tortured, killed, and forcibly baptized. The Jews of Troyes were spared the bloody path, but they weren't spared the terror.
I see you have come to greet me, old man.
Not to greet you, Duke Godfrey, but to make sure you do not interrupt the study of Torah.
I'm not coming with an interruption, Holy Jew. You refused to come to me. Now I have come to you with a bishop, an army, and my plans of conquest.
I know your bishop, I know your army, and I know your plan of conquest. What do you want from me?
We are leaving for Jerusalem at dawn with 200 ships and over 10,000 men. What does an old Jew think of that?
Why not ask your bishop? He knows how I think.
I am asking you.
Then I'll tell you. You will conquer Jerusalem, Duke Godfrey, but you'll hold it for less than a week. And if you return, you'll return to Troyes beaten, with 2 horses. No more.
What makes you Jews so sure you know so much? I will ride back into Troyes in victory. But should I return with even 3 horses, I will make you the first order of business. I will kill you and everything Jewish around you. To Jerusalem!
Legend says that Duke Godfrey conquered Jerusalem and returned to Troyes with 3 horses. Eager to seek out Rashi, he passed through the arches of the city, and a huge boulder fell, killing one of his horses. History says, however, that Duke Godfrey did capture Jerusalem briefly, as Rashi predicted, but died in the Holy Land shortly after. The story about the boulder and the horses remains legend. In the last years of his life, Rashi had to confront disturbing questions in Jewish law that were a result of the Crusades. The French Jewish communities were outraged at fellow Jews who gave in to the Christian demands. Rashi saw things differently.
Rabbis, you cannot for a moment believe his claim against me. Not more than 2 years ago, this man left the Jewish community, was baptized, and only recently returned to Judaism.
And what might his being forcibly baptized have to do with his claim that you have refused payments for the services he rendered?
You can't believe a Jew who allowed himself to be baptized.
But I should believe you, a man who publicly embarrasses a repentant? How dare you remind this man of his past weaknesses in my Beis Din, or anywhere? We will judge this business case on its merits. Only on its merits.
But Rabbeinu, Asher ben Zev is living in sin.
I was married while I was living as a Christian. But there was a Jewish marriage to a Jewish woman with 2 witnesses and a minion. Rabbeinu, we were Jews in our hearts. We let them baptize us, but we never stopped being Jews. They put a sword to our throat. What could we do?
Are the witnesses here? Tell me what you saw.
In a dark cellar, late at night, this man, Asher, the son of Zev, then known as Sean, handed a ring to that woman, Rachel, the daughter of Yaakov, then known as Francesca. And he said, "You are hereby sanctified to me according to the laws of Moses and Israel."
And what did you see?
I saw the same thing, Rabbeinu.
Yisrael, af al pi shechata, Yisrael who? A Jew, even though he has sinned, is still a Jew. This man is married. He is a Jew. He has returned to his people and is welcome. How would you have stood up to the pressures he gave into? How would any of us stand up? Are there any more business issues we must hear?
Rashi not only offered his opinion in the courtroom, but made his ruling come alive in the synagogue.
וידבר משה מאוזני כל קהל ישראל את דברי השירו הזאת עד תומם.
ברוך אתה השם אלוקינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורה סמס וחיי עולם ותבסות.
I would like to call up the next honor.
נושאין התורה.
יעמוד רב אשר בן זאב להגבוהס התורה.
Asher, the son of Zev, is honored with the lifting of the Torah.
This is the Torah that Moses put in front of the children of Israel in the name of God in the hand of Moses.
Grandpapa, pick me up.
There are only 2 things that could get me to stop learning. The harvest and you, my little Yaakov. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei pri ha'etz.
Amen. Grandpapa, can I watch you study alone?
Study is not something you watch. Study is something you do.
But you argue with my father when you study with him. Who do you argue with when you study alone?
With myself. The prophet Yirmiyahu says that Torah is like a rock split by a hammer, Yaakov. It ends up in many different pieces. Sparks. We don't really argue. We have different points of view. We disagree in order to understand.
Can I disagree with you?
Only when you know how to learn. Then you can disagree all you want.
I want to disagree now.
Frisky young man, your grandson?
I don't know what to do with him. When did you arrive?
I haven't really arrived. I'm just passing through.
As always. Is there trouble in Spain? How far have these mobs taken their venom?
Italy, France, Germany. But Spain will have its day. Is that fear I hear in your voice, Rabbi Shlomo?
Is there an end to all of this?
Rabbi, we must think of ourselves as part of a chain. And not a chain of suffering, a chain of Torah. There's no end, there's no beginning. Look, you've taken Torah straight from Rabbeinu Gershom, the light of the exile. Yes, and you've passed it on to your sons-in-laws. Your grandson has started a kuntrus of his own. Rabbi Simcha, Rabbi Shemaiah, you've built a house, Rabbi Shlomo, a house of Torah, the house of Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki.
If only I could know what will be with my frisky little grandson.
Well, surely he'll become very learned and disagree with you, and so will the others.
I hope so. I only hope so.
For his remaining years, Rashi stayed mostly at home and dictated to his scholarly grandson, the son of Rabbi Meir, who would later write a widely accepted Talmudic commentary of his own, known as the Rashbam.
Read the first part of the Mishnah as a question. Read the second part as an interpretation.
Grandpapa, it takes me 50 words to write the same thing you explain in 2 sentences.
But you'll have many more years to write them than I will.
Grandpapa, Why is this happening to us?
Why is what happening?
The killings, the fires, the baptisms.
Arrogance. Separating from the very source of man's strength. It all happens when man thinks it. When we think we're above God's law.
Is there nothing we can do?
Pray. Repent. Learn Torah. Live Torah. Keep the chain alive. Now, tell me again. Why did Rashi take such a strong position?
Always the Talmudist, the teacher, the interpreter, Rashi was never one to philosophize. But sad and near death, he did turn his feelings directly to heaven in 7 poetic prayers that he composed. These prayers of petition, slichos, are still recited today.
Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Hanina, says that in the latter part of the Mishnah, since he ate outside the walls, the second tithe is tahor, pure. And the man himself, for the same reason, is tahor.
Baruch atah Hashem, King of the universe, the true judge. The true judge.
יושב בסס העליון, בצל שקי יסלונון, אומר להשם מחסי וצורסי, אלוקי יפתח בו.
In the Middle Ages, before the days of record-keeping, it is rare that we know the actual date of a man's death. But in the case of Rashi, a beloved leader in his own time, the date lived on in history. The place of his burial, however, is not known. His works remain his monument. Rashi made Torah accessible to everyone, from the giants of Torah who would follow in his footsteps to the most ordinary. To this day, even a Jew with only the most basic Jewish education prides himself on his study of Chumash or Bible with Rashi. All of Rashi's grandchildren became learned scholars. Collectively, they became known as Tosfos, each commenting directly on their grandfather's text as their way of continuing the chain of Torah. Little Yaakov became Rabbeinu Tam and grew into the most famous of all the grandchildren. Throughout his commentary, he regularly argues with Rashi on many issues, including the order of the placement of the parchments in tefillin. But he was also his grandfather's strongest defender, and would later lead the generation of Franco-German Jewry who would most suffer at the hands of the Crusades.